It's funny how these things always seem to happen on a Friday, isn't it? It's just like, you know how it is when you start the day. And I was all like, no, get off me, Belinda. Oh, jeez, it was just a moment that we will never talk about again. Here is your wrestling news. A former champion says a WWE return is very possible. AEW deny signing a controversial Indy star. And we have the possible reason for retribution changes being made. And we'll talk about that in a bit. The son of a WWE legend could be making a return to the company, whether he wants to or not. Davey Boy Smith Jr. was chatting to Sports Illustrated about the relaunch of MLW. They got back up and running with brand new shows on a Wednesday night from this week. Davey Boy Smith Jr. has been a big part of MLW since 2004. He was 18 years old when he made his debut for them. He even says in this interview with Sports Illustrated, I remember studying for my chemistry midterm on the aeroplane. And I've been a part of MLW for a long time, and I'm excited to be a part of the reboot. But they talked about stuff going forward for Davey Boy Smith Jr. Of course, he's a former tag team champion as part of WWE. He and Tyson Kidd did some great stuff back in the day, and he went away and did stuff in New Japan. He's travelled all over the world. And when asked about his future plans, he said, I have a lot to think about and a lot of options to weigh, but I'm looking forward to seeing what transpires in my future. A return to WWE is very possible. He says right now he's focusing on his time in MLW, but certainly would be up for going back to WWE. And you have to believe that somebody with the pedigree, if you pardon the pun, of the son of the British Bulldog, there's certainly going to be some intrigue from WWE to bring them back in. We are expecting to see Bulldog in the WWE Hall of Fame next year. So we understand that everybody that was meant to be in the Hall of Fame this year is going in next year. So who knows? Davey Boy Smith Jr. may get an appearance come WrestleMania this year, presumably looking for his dad's title shot from 1999. That's a Cultaholic Classic SmackDown review joke. If you listen to the podcast and you get that joke, 10 points to you. Over on AEW's side, during the post-Dynamite chat with Tony Khan, one of the fans brought up the question about whether AEW would sign Tessa Blanchard. Now, Tessa Blanchard has had quite the year. She was the first female to become the Impact World Heavyweight Champion. This led to some discomfort with her in the company and some bad blood between the two that led to Tessa Blanchard's contract being terminated while she was acting Impact World Champion. And we haven't heard much, with the exception of the odd indie dates, from Tessa Blanchard. It's a name that comes up a lot with WWE and AEW. There's always some rumour mill ticking over whether or not she'll turn up at either company. Tony Khan put those rumours to bed in terms of whether she would go to AEW. During this presser, he said, quote, if we were going to sign Tessa Blanchard, we would have done it by now. So that pretty much draws the line under that, really. Whether Tessa Blanchard will be a part of AEW or not, it certainly seems unlikely at this time. Not sure what the future holds for Tessa Blanchard, to be honest. There's obviously connections to her in WWE, having previously done stuff in the Mae Young Classic. But a few comments that were made earlier on in the year certainly haven't sat well with many, which is probably why we haven't really seen her turn up anywhere in the last, since she left Impact Wrestling. Over on NXT, we had an injury on Wednesday night. It's been reported that Arturo Ruas suffered a leg injury in his match against Kushida. We also understand via Fightful Select that there were some vignettes recorded for Ruas. We had that little 10-second bumper before his match started, but there was some other stuff that we were meant to see that ended up getting cut from the show. Could have been due to time. I don't know how connected it was to this injury that Ruas seems to suffer. Hopefully, nothing's going to keep him away from the ring for too long, but when we know more, we will let you know more at cultaholic.com. Also, on Wednesday night, during that cracker of a main event between Io Shirai and Rhea Ripley, you may have noticed Rhea Ripley's ear started bleeding. That's because she had several of her ear piercings pulled out during the match. If you're gonna go hard, you go hard. So you can get a message from the dark side, from The Undertaker, wishing you maybe a happy bar mitzvah or congratulations on your bris for $1,000 a time. To give you an idea as to how that matches up to other people on the platform, you could spend $1,000 and get a message from The Undertaker. Sure. Or you could get 4 messages from Chuck Norris. Or you could get 10 messages from Gilbert Godfrey. I voiced the parrot in Aladdin. Do you remember me? Oh God, I've just realized this is where Barry the Shark's voice comes from. There's gonna be litigation, isn't there? And finalamo, Mercedes Martinez was removed from the Retribution stable shortly after their debut. We never quite got the reason as to why that happened. We still don't have the official reason, but we have a possible reason why we never saw more of Martinez with the other gang members in Retribution. You know, Slapjack, T-Bar, Mace, Flabberdag, Monty Jig, Crumbly, and Reckoning, and Len. I think that's everybody. Mercedes Martinez put out a tweet last night where she was encouraging people to continue wearing masks as we are still in a pandemic. She also revealed that she has a son who is immunocompromised. Now, if you do have family members that you live with who are immunocompromised, probably the last thing you're going to want to do is go out and be somewhere where there have been multiple cases of COVID outbreaks, as was the case at the Performance Center. In fact, it was just as Mercedes Martinez was leaving the group, we had an outbreak which stemmed from the Performance Center, and a few of those who tested positive were part of an angle involving Retribution. So that could have been something that made her go, do you know what? I'm just gonna let you lot crack on. I'll be over here. So that might explain as to why we haven't seen her as part of Retribution. I do hope we get Mercedes Martinez back in some capacity soon, though, because I think there's a lot of upside with Mercedes Martinez. I feel like she's going to be one of those people that just have those game-changing, aggressive battles across the women's division. Would love to see more Mercedes Martinez going forward. Love You Bye Friday is back today at twitch.tv/Cultaholic. It is a live call-in show. It is you and I here in the isolation station, taking your Skype calls for an hour about wrestling, life, the universe, everything. Would be great for you to join me at twitch.tv/Cultaholic. If you're not bothered, whatever, Trevor. Stay safe. Love you. Bye. Keep waving. Keep waving. Click the videos all around here. There's some good ones. Go to the shop as well. Keep waving. Does anybody remember Doug, the cartoon Doug? Do 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 do. That bit at the end during the credits where he'd wave constantly, and eventually he'd just hold his hand and do that. Do 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 do. Andrew, cut this, please. Cut this here. Cut this here. My hand's hurting.